Okay, I think we'll get started. The goal of today's meeting is to talk about how to manage inventory, including entering in sale and death records, as well as doing movement records, so that we can all get our accounts cleaned up as we go into the new year. So we have a few different things that we're going to work on today. We're going to be using AgSite's Beef Farm demo account to do some inventory cleanup. The first thing that we're going to do is take a look at where our current inventory sits so that we can figure out what animals we need to clean up. So I like to use the show chart button to get a quick overview of this. So we'll go up into the top nav, and here we're given our inventory by sex as the default graph. Just a reminder that this graph is interactive, so if you want to filter down the information on the right, for example, if I wanted to see all the animals entered, and now I have my 40 bulls here in the list so that I can do other things with. If I want to reset this once I've filtered down, the easiest way is just to re-click on the Animals tab and it'll reset itself for you. So the first thing that I thought we would do today is go through how to select your replacements and move them into the breeding herd. So let's take a look at all of our heifer calves here. And then I'm going to close this graph once I have things organized. So these are all of the heifers that I have in my account here. Now, every year before we enter in our new offspring from our first crop, heifers or ewes or does, the first thing that we need to do is switch the animal from being a young newborn animal to a mature animal. Otherwise, you'll run into some data validation issues that will say that this animal is a newborn and you can't add progeny to that animal. So the fastest way to do that is to use the bulk editing feature. So what I'm going to do is I have my sex column here. I'm also going to add the column called category. So now I have all of my heifers with the category being newborn animal. And now what I can simply do is all the ones that I want to decide are going to enter the breeding herd and what I want to mark as cows, I can just select them and edit them all at once. So by default, if you click on the little circle at the top in the header rows here, that's going to select all of them. And potentially, I might not want all of them to be marked as cows. Maybe some were sold or culls, etc. So I'm going to say any of the ones that I didn't enter a registration name in are not entering my breeding herd. So I'll just unselect those ones. And then once you've selected some of the rows in the table, you'll see a new button appears called Edit. And when you click this edit, it tells you at the top that it's the changes that I'm going to make are edits to these 15 records. So make sure that you've selected the animals you intend to select before you change this. Otherwise, it could cause some challenges. So in here, I'm going to change the data. Remember that the bulk edit function can only be used to edit data that's the same for all animals. So in this case, I have all of my heifers that are all going to become cows. That's no big deal. But if I wanted to change things that are different for each individual animal, instead of using bulk edit, we would use the export to Excel online feature instead. So just a little bit of a difference depending on what it is you're trying to change. So really key, make sure. Okay, so we see that our view updated here. We only have 5 heifers left in here. The other ones, of course, the sex has been changed to cow. And then we'll go back to our main view again. So now we have all of these offspring have been moved to the sex of cow. Once we've designated which animals we're going to keep as replacements, the next logical step would be to sell off the ones that are not in your inventory. So ideally, if you're keeping track of your sales throughout the year and on either a notebook or in Excel, you could import the sales events with the proper details for each event. That's going to give you extra kind of insight in the program, such as, and we can go over to our sale here. We have all of our sales events history over time, sale reasons by year. So in 2020, most of the animals that the sale events in this demo account were sent to the live market. A few were culled because they were open, and a few were sent as breeding stock. And again, this is interactive, so if I wanted to see which animals I sold as breeding stock, I can just double click on this pink bar. And then I can see that these were the 10 animals that I sold as breeding stock. So ideally, we can get a lot more value from the program if we are capturing that type of data. But what we're mostly concerned about here is making sure that our inventory is up to date. I know not everyone keeps that level of records for their sales and deaths. And of course, bioTrack Plus is designed to be flexible. So what we're talking about mostly today is how to clean up, enter a sales record to get rid of animals that are no longer on the operation. So we'll go back to our animals here. Let's say I just wanted to do a cleanup of all of my bull calves and heifers that are still in inventory. Best way to approach this, we are going to filter by sex, equals heifer or bull calf. And that leaves 23 in this list. You can just double check, make sure that those are the ones that we want. Now what we're going to do is just and that will open in Excel a list of all of the animals. Main reason we're doing that is that will give us the animal IDs. You can also import based on ear tags or registration names, etc. But I find this to be the easiest way to do it. Next, we're going to go and get a sale template. So as a reminder, to do that, we are going to go into the top navigation bar, the 3 dots for more, and under Excel template. And then in every single entity, which in this case also means page. So right now we're looking at the animals page. If I want to go and look for the sales event, I'll just scroll down and find that one instead. So entity is the page that we want to download. If I would have opened this from the sales event page, it would have assumed that the entity was sales event. And then under view, we're always looking for the one. So here's the data that we're looking for in our sales event. The only required fields for a sale event is an animal and an animal ID and a date. Everything else is optional. So I'm just going to take this list of animals from here and copy it into. Now, ideally, if I knew when I had actually sold my animals, I would enter in the event date for each of these. But assuming that I just want to clean up my inventory right now, and I don't necessarily have those records, I can just enter in a arbitrary date for as my kind of inventory cleanup date. So let's say that we're cleaning it up as of December 1st. Oh, copy cells. Sale reason, again, if I knew why I had sold them, ideally I would enter them in here. So let's say that the reason that we didn't select these calves to enter our breeding herd was poor performance. Just copy that down for all of them. Again, if you have sale weights, you could enter them here as well. And you could specify who you sold the animals to. But in this case, we're just going to say that this was an inventory cleanup in the comments so that I know what I've done here. Okay. And once I have entered all of that in, I'm going to save this file as a CSV. You will get this message when you save as a CSV that says this workbook cannot be saved in the selected file format because it contains multiple sheets. You don't really have to worry about this. It's just a warning that in a CSV file there can only be one sheet active. So if you have an Excel file that has multiple different sheets and then you try and save it as CSV, okay, and then as we usually do when we are importing records, we need to go to the page where we're looking to import the records. So I'm on my sales events, and then in the top navigation bar, I'm going to import. Make sure you choose import from CSV, not import from Excel. So we'll click, let's show you again. Click the arrow beside. We'll select our file. And then click next. You don't have to change anything on this page. We'll go to review mapping. Okay, so on this page, we just need to make sure that everything has mapped correctly. Because we've used the template, it should be pretty good. We shouldn't have any issues with this. Just a reminder though, if you were using like your own file and you had tried to import with year tags instead, you need to change the animal lookup to the right column. So we would click the magnifying glass. By default, it's looking for animal ID, which is perfect because I use the animal ID in the file. But if I wanted to say use ear tag instead, I need to select that ID type. So this just tells it where to look. Same with registration ID or name, etc. But again, because I use the default animal ID, nothing to change there. We have event date. These three columns that say do not modify, you can just ignore. That's just something that's in the template that we don't need. Sale reason, again, we use the template, shouldn't have any issues here, but we can just double check that our option matches. As a reminder, you can go about doing other things in the program while you're waiting for the import to go. You don't have to go and watch the import. And again, this screen will not automatically update, so you will have to click the refresh button just to. Okay, so see here that we had 23 events that were processed and 23 were successful. That's good. As a reminder, if we see some failures here, we would click on the file name and then go to the Failures tab. Again, this will be blank because there were no failures, but if there were failures, this would give us a list row by row of which animals failed. And in the more detailed section, it would tell us why that record failed so that we could fix that and re-import it again. So now that we've imported those sales events, we should be able to go back to our animals tab and see that our inventory has decreased by 15. Now we have, or more than 15. We have 123 left. So we have our event date of December 1st. Our sale reason was poor performance for all of them. And we could look at our chart as well. So now we have those 23 sales events. Again, this is interactive. If I wanted to see all the sales events that were entered on this specific date, I could click on that. And I can look at my sale reasons by year. So in 2023, I had 5 that didn't have a sale reason entered and 23 that were called for poor performance. Another thing that we should probably do when we're cleaning up our inventory would be to remove any animals that have been culled through the year, potentially cows. So if throughout the year you've been using the tasks form, you can actually indicate. So just as an example of how we would go about doing that, let's say that we wanted to call 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 6, H. We would click on her and go to the Activities tab. And remember, this Activities tab is kind of like a virtual notebook. You can use it to record notes or tasks as you kind of work throughout the year. If I wanted to add a new task, I'm going to hit the plus button here, and I'll add a task. That will bring a pop-up. In the next few weeks, this task form is going to look a little bit different. We have done some enhancements to it, and I'm just testing off an email notification when a task is due to occur, and some other things like that. One of the future webinars, I'll walk through all of those enhancements, but for now, we're just going to take a look at how to use the call feature. Ignore the fact that right now you have to insert both an alert and a task reason. That's resolved in the new version. And you'll also be able to assign tasks to either an individual. So once you've entered in the details, there's lots of different information you could add here. You can save and close this task. And then I'm going to go over into my tasks view, or task page. Now by default, I'm going to see all of my tasks in here, but I've created a personal view, and again, when the enhancements get pushed over for everyone, this view will be public and everyone will have available. But I created a view called Call List, where I've looked for all of the tasks that have reason of call. So here we have our 3 calls, and the activity status is open, so I haven't completed that yet. So what I could do here is just export these IDs to Excel. Now I have a list of the animals that I wanted to call. So if I wanted, I could print that out and bring it to the barn with me to go and find those animals. You can customize this view, so if you prefer to use a different ID than the animal ID, we can do that as well. We can edit columns, add columns, and then apply it. And of course, I could reorder the columns as I wanted, but then I would have the extra fields that I was looking for. And when I downloaded it, it would save this. Remember, if you want to make changes to one of the system views, make sure you, under Create View, Save as New View. That will make sure that the next time you go and look at it, all the changes you've made are available to you. Now, again, same as before, if I wanted to create sale events and import them, could do the same thing that we did with the calves. So we would just copy this into the template, make sure that we have an event date, and then we can use our task reason to indicate what the sale reason was. For the sake of brevity, I'm not going to go through that, but I will remind everyone that if you're doing one at a time kind of sales throughout the year, or particularly if deaths of your mature animals, if that only happens once in a while, it might just as well be easy to go into the animal page and add them individually. So to do that, we will go into the Animal Events tab, and in this grid here, there's a button for New. We will enter in a new sale. Because we created this event from within the animal, it auto-populates the animal's ID. By default, it's going to assume that the event date is today. And then we can indicate why we sold this one. Maybe this cat was open. If we wanted, we could enter a sale weight in unit, price per unit, and other financial information to keep track of that. You can also enter in some shipping information, who we sold to. So let's say we sold it to the stockyard. And then there's a few verification checks at the bottom, which could be used if you're creating shipping manifests for a various value chain. So by default, it assumes that there is a fit for transport check completed, a withdrawal check completed, and a broken needle check completed at the bottom here. Once we've filled in all of our details, we will save and close. And then I can just close that pop-up. Now that this animal has been sold, you'll see that the ownership has changed to bioTrack owned. That just means that it's in the database, but it isn't in your inventory. The record is also becomes read-only. You don't have access to edit the record anymore. But you can still see the record of the events of that animal in your events tab. So you can't edit the actual animal's details, but you can go and look at the events that have been recorded for that animal. Now, a common problem that it seems people are having some issues with is if you enter your sale events before you enter your. So to recap, now we have selected which animals we're going to keep as replacements. We've made them mature animals so that we can start adding offspring next year to them. We've sold all off kind of an inventory cleanup sale to clean up our inventory with our sales. We looked at how we could use the tasks view to kind of keep a running list of calls. The last thing that we'd probably want to do to clean up would be to make sure that our deaths are up to date. All right, so deaths really isn't that different than entering in a sales. So we can either import a list of deaths, or we can import or enter an individual event for an individual animal. We can also add death events from the death events tab rather than going into the. So let's say we're going to enter a death for this one. And again, the only mandatory fields here are animal and event date. We can also add a reason. Let's say this one was respiratory illness. We could enter a death weight, disposal method, who actually recorded the death event. If you're interested in that level of traceability on a larger operation, you can keep a list of contacts in the account so that if one person records an event, you know who actually logged that information. And then some information about dead stock pickup. And then we could also save and close it to go back to the main death screen. Okay, so again, once we've entered in our sales and deaths, maybe you want to take a look and see if the numbers are matching what we have on farm. You could take a list of your active inventory and print it out and take it out with you in the farm, or use your tablet to check this as you're running them through the chute. So now we have 40 bulls and 82 cows. In this demo account. Another thing we might want to do is clean up where the animals are located. So entering in some movement records so that all the animals are reflective of where they actually are on the farm. So in this case, in this account, I have two locations, pen 1, and I have my ASF bull battery. So potentially what I might want to do is enter in movement events to clean up where everything is. So we're going to go to our locations tab first. And this will have all the active locations in your account. To add a new one, we'll of course click the plus sign new at the top. And we need to give our location a name. In this case, I'm going to create a new location that I'm going to call finishing pens. And we will say that that is a location type is a pen. If you want, you can enter in premises ID. We're going to say that this is part of Eggsite's farm. I guess I don't have a master location for that. Never mind. And yeah, you can put the address in as well if you want. Now, once you've saved this, on the right, you'll see a location active inventory. So once we move animals into this location, if we come to this locations tab, we can quickly get a list of all the animals that are in that location. So let's go back to our animals. Now I'm gonna say that in this scenario, I want to move all of the bulls that are not in the bull battery, so all my stalkers or whatever that are around the farm. So I'm going to filter by sex equals bull. Now we can see this has all of the ones with bull as the sex, so that includes my herd bulls here that are in my bull battery location. So I'm going to filter by does not equal ASF bull battery. And that leaves 32 left that were 2022 calves that are still around. And again, probably the simplest way to do this is to export this list to Excel. So here we have all of our pens and their current location, or all our bulls are their current location is called pen 1. And we are going to then go and get our template for our movement event. So we'll go to movement events. In the top navigation bar, we'll go download our template. Again, we're always looking for the one that's called template. That has all the basic columns that typically you would use. You can customize this. So if you click edit columns, you can select which specific columns you want to download, but most of the time, the basic template should have everything you need. So the movement event's pretty simple. We just need a list of animals, the date that they were moved out, and where they are going to be moved to. So we'll just copy over our bull IDs here. And paste it into the template. Again, let's assume that we're going to create our movement event to just clean everything up as of December 1st. Watch this here. I'm dragging down. It's filled in series rather than pasting the same number here. So if that happens, just instead of saying fill series, click copy cells. And then to location. Now, what's important is that to location is a lookup field. So as a reminder, a lookup field means that the program, when it imports the records, is going to look for that already to be in the system. So if I put my lookup location to something, but I had not created that location already, we're going to get an error that the lookup could not be resolved. It can't find that location in the system. So make sure you're always adding your locations, your groups, your sires, your dams, anything that's a lookup field into the system before you try to reference it when you're importing records. So in this case, type in my finishing pens. Just to show you what that looks like. It is important that you call the location exactly as you typed it in the system. So let's say this last one, I put finishing pen instead of finishing pens, and finishing pens is what I had called it in the system. We'll just see what happens there. If you have any comments you want to add, you can do that as well. And then we are going to save this as a CSV. Again, we'll get this error that we can't save multiple pages. We'll just click OK. That's no big deal. And now I'm going to go into the top navigation bar again, click the 3 dots, and then beside import from Excel, we will select import from CSV. I'm going to choose the file. This is the movement event template that I created. I'll click next. Again, you don't have to change anything on this page. We'll just click review mapping. So anything that is a lookup, that's going to be shown by this magnifying glass here. Under location, by default, it's going to look for the location. In cases, depending on the type of error, there might also be some clues and more information. But in this case, whenever you see an error that happens during transforming phase, and it's called the lookup reference cannot be resolved, make sure you go and check to make that the value you've entered in your spreadsheet matches what you have in the database. If I wanted to fix this, I can export the error rows. And then I would just correct this one from finishing pen to finishing pens, and then I could re-upload it from there. Now we'll go over to our movement events tab. We can see the number of movement events here. There's a few other graphs. There will be a few more graphs being entered in the next little while. We've been working with some interns out of Cape Breton University that have been working on some new. We'll click on the show chart button. And in our cleaned up inventory, now that we've entered our sales and our deaths, we have 82 cows and 40 bulls. And if we want another level of detail, the second graph is nice, inventory by location and sex, just to see where everything is located on the farm. So now we can see that we have a new location here, our finishing pens, that we have 31 bulls in. We also have 81 cows in pen 1 and 8 bulls in our bull battery. So this is a good view that you can use as a quick overview to make sure everything lines up with where you think animals should be on the farm, and make sure your numbers match what you have in your on-farm records as well. Thanks again for joining today's webinar. Happy to see a good turnout. Our next webinar is going to be in January. To see the schedule of upcoming webinars, you can go onto our website. And then under bioTrack Plus, there is a tab called Track Talks Webinar Series. That's where you would have registered for this one, and I'll put up the new registration form for the next one as well. So our next webinar is going to be January 17th, and we're going to talk about achieving your New Year's herd or flock performance goals, how you can use your weights, your scores, EPDs, and reports in order to make decisions for your operation. As always, if you do have any questions that come up as you're using the program, feel free to reach out at support@biotrack.ca, and myself, Lois, or Betty Jo would be happy to help you use this. So hopefully we'll see you in the new year at our January webinar. Have a great day.